Hi there, let me just check we're recording. Yes, I think we are. So I'm going to do a couple of follow-up videos to the Hochanda show that was on Friday. It was a great show. I absolutely loved it. Big thanks to Leonie for making it run so smoothly, because I was truly terrified and really hadn't got a clue what I was doing. So she did that quite masterfully. But obviously on Hochanda we only have an hour, and we all know how long I can bang on for. It usually takes about 6.5 hours for me to get across my point. And there is there's a dual purpose to that show. The whole channel is partly funded by the sales, so obviously they're going to promote the products as well, which is great. But it does mean that the demos were essentially and had to be quite quick. And I felt when I watched it back and got feedback from others, perhaps that it might have seemed a bit intimidating. Now it isn't. Those of you that know me well will know I don't do intimidating. But those of you that don't know me so well may feel that this is too hard for you. It really, really isn't. It's a very simple project, this, and I really want you to feel that you can do these kind of things and take this step and therefore find your own creative place and your own creative artist inside you. So I thought I could go back through in a bit more detail some of the things, particularly painting the rose and perhaps doing some fabric stamping. And I will also add in, which wasn't something I was ever going to have time to do in Hochanda, but making up the collage as well. So without more ado, now that I know how long things take, here we go. So I hope you can see. I'm going to try and zoom the camera in a minute. You see, you put me on TV for half an hour and I think I'm a camera woman. But we'll give it a go. So I've got the rose here transferred onto my fabric. Now I've done that really simply. If you watch the show, which I'm assuming you did, very simply, I'm just going to put the rose under some fabric. That isn't a clean piece of, you see, on the show I had all this ready. Now we're back to default for me, which is everything's a bit of a botch up. But you can see the rose through that fabric very easily to just be able to trace that off with a pencil. So I've traced this already. You can see this here, and now I'm going to put a colour wash onto this. So let's start with that. I've got my paints out of my palette here. I'm using a nice palette here with 8 wells and 8 mixing dishes. As you can see, I don't clean mine very well, but I think that's fine because acrylic won't re-wet, so it doesn't really matter too much. And I've got in each kit, you get these colours. You get black and white, and you get yellow, blue, blue, and red, which are your primary colours. So from those you can mix any other colour. And I've also put in green because it is a nature thing. So I'm going to start off by making myself a very pale green wash to do this with. Now one of the ways I like to do this is to put a tiny, just put blue on there, is to put a tiny bit of the paint, and I do mean a tiny bit, just a few bits on a brush into a little pot of water like this, and this gives me a very pale colour wash. So I've got one in green there. Let's make one in very pale blue and see what that looks like. So I'm going to put a bit of water into my pot, and I'm going to make up a nice mid blue. Now the way I'm going to do this, I've got my primary blue here. I'm going to mix a tiny bit of black with some white to make myself a grey colour, which is really useful for knocking back other colours. When paints come straight out of the jar, they are usually very stark colours, and I prefer them knocked back a little, so I will nearly always add a little grey. So I'm going to take, I've got one of these were from the supermarket, useful, don't know what it's actually meant for, some sort of barbecuing jobby, I would think, but anyway, for me it's a good little paint mixer. So I'm taking a tiny bit of black. Better to take too little than too much. So this is where you will start wasting paints. If you add too much of a colour and I make this too dark, I'm going to have to chuck in more white, and I will end up with a huge volume. So I'm just putting a little tiny bit in to see where that goes, and actually that is making, I hope you can see, a very nice light pale mid grey, and that's all I need. So that was, I hope you saw, a tiny bit of paint. Okay, so we'll just wipe that off on some tissue. So I've got a nice pale grey there. I've also got kitchen towel all over my spatula now. So I'm going to put a little bit of that grey in with my blue, and that will be default blue if you like. So I'm going to get a little bit of the grey on here and add it in there, and this will just check that you can see this. This just knocks the, can you see that? It's not a big difference, but it's just stopped it being so stark. So I'm now going to put, I'm going to make a lighter version now, I think, because I want a light blue wash. So I'm going to put a tiny bit of the blue in there, and I'm going to add, this is going to get dirty girls, some white. Okay, and that is making me a nice paler blue, and I've also got a nice splob in my white. Just classic Hilary, really, but never mind. You see, I was very good on the television. I didn't do any of this messing around and getting in a bugger's muddle, did I? And I didn't say bugger either. You know, I did all of it properly. That's still a bit, I'm going to add a bit more grey to that. You mix the colours you like, just kind of take it where you want to. That's better, that's a softer blue. Now, I don't need very much of this at all. So here's my glass of water. Glass. Pot. It's a pot. It's a pot of water, okay? So I'm just going to add a couple of little tiny bits of blue into that, and then get a brush, and let's see if we've got a colour. I'll just try it on my paper here. Not yet, that is still just about neutral. So I'm going to, what I will do, I think if we take some of that off the spatula, for starters, that's going to liven it up. I made a mess around the edge, and I'll add a bit more of the blue off my brush. But my point here is you do not need very much. I'm making a colour wash here, that's all. Tiny bit more. So just keep mixing it up, and I might add a little bit of white into that, just to give it a little bit more depth. Okay, that's giving me a very pale blue now. I mean, it really is a very pale blue. Tiny bit more. With all of these, go with too little rather than too much. So I've got a very pale blue, and I've got a very very pale green there. And I'll just clean up my pot. Oh, what a messy child. Nope, not you, Dixie. Oh, he's nodded off again. He's completely... Oh, 6 minutes. You see, this is where it is very difficult on a timed programme, because you've got about 5 minutes to do a demo. I'm doing 6 minutes on just mixing the paint into a jar of water. And that is my peculiar talent, to take a very long time telling you about things. Right, so we've got that all mixed up there. So I've got some blue, and I've got some green, and I've got my rose. And you don't have to do this, you could do your rose onto a white background, but I think it looks quite nice with just a little bit of a colour wash in the background. So I'm using a bigger brush, my big brush, and I'm just brushing on some of these colours. So that's the very pale green, which I've used on most of them, so I'm going to use mostly that. So this is just a few splashes of green in with some water. If you can't be bothered to make a pot, or you haven't got a pot, you can take the colour off the palette, like can you see? Yes, you can. Like that, and add, whoa, that's my cup of tea. Let's get things in order here so they don't get in a mess. And add loads of water to that and make a wash that way, and that will give a pale blue wash. So let's put a bit more of that in there. And this is, whoa, it's not everybody can do that trick. This is the one that I've got on the table, which is a lovely pale. So if you've got time, I would think about making yourself, sit and do this project as a nice afternoon's work, and make yourself a couple of pots of these washes. Then you've always got them when you're colour washing fabrics. You can make them a bit stronger, you can make them a bit weaker, but they're just there and ready to go, and they're giving a lovely gentle colour on here, which is all I want to do. So I would wash all over my little rose here. It looks very stripy on the camera. It doesn't look as stripy here, honest. So I would just wash over, and don't fuss over this. This is background. You just want some nice tints of colour in there, just so it's not so stark behind your rose. So we'll just finish that boy off. If you've got a bigger brush at home, like this is the biggest one from the kit. Oh no, it's not actually. It's not. This is the biggest one from the kit. This could make it easier. This could make it quicker. Oh yes. Oh yes. What a twallop. What a twallop. Did you notice I just managed to, I'm not sure what I was trying to avoid saying there. Twallop? Trollop? Trollop possibly? Probably trollop. And trollop isn't a swear word, so I could have gone for it. Never mind. Stop gibbering on, Hilary. Here we go. There we are. There we are. So that's all nicely colour washed. I would give that a blot, to be honest with you, with a spare bit of the fabric, because then you'll get a bit more colour on that. You do get full instructions with all of this, written in my own inimitable style. And if you are stuck with any of them, again, if you know me, you know that I'm perfectly happy for you to email and ask me, and I will sort you out. So there we have the colour wash background. I do have one I did earlier just in plain green for us to paint. So I think I will just blot that. We've got about, I can't remember how long I have on the camera now. Do I get about 25 minutes? So we've got 15 minutes now of painting this rose. So let's get stuck in. Let's see how we go. I want to do some more colour mixing because I thought I did on the show the blue rose. Most of the samples I did were the red rose, so I thought, just to keep things interesting, for this one I'm going to do the purple rose. So I've got all my colours out here and I want to mix purple. I've got blue and red, which is what is going to make my purple. I've got a nice blue in here already where I was mixing that lighter blue with just a small amount in there. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to add some red to that. Again, I'm doing small amounts. You won't know until you're more experienced which colours are strong. I'll stop trying to keep your palette clean, Hilary. You see, I've been influenced. You won't know which are the strongest colours, but you will find out as you work. So assume they all are and go carefully. Red is very strong, so I'm going to add a bit more blue to that. Deepen it up a bit. Bit more red, not too much. I'm going slow with these colours and just mixing away until I get a purple that I like. That's nice. I like that one. That's a nice purple colour. You can see that there. That's going to be nice for my roses. Okay, so I've got a nice purple for my roses. So because I think it makes it easier, probably I would paint the flowers first, really, but because I'm excited, let's try and get my words in it. What's this thing about punctuation? A comma in the right place. I would paint the flowers first. But because I'm excited, no, I would paint the flowers first because I'm excited, but it's going to be easier for you to see what I'm doing if I paint the stems first, because then you can position the rose on here. Now, this is where I am going to try and zoom the camera, so let's give it a bash and see what happens. Ooh, well, it's zoomed. Let's just tweak. And I hope is in focus. I'll find out, won't I? My hands look in focus, so let's see. So I'm going to put the stems in first. So I'm going to do the same with the green as I did with the blue. I am going to add some grey to it. So let's bring my palette in so you can see it. Let's just pop that in the water. So I've got this is green here. Gosh, it looks different colour on the camera, doesn't it? This is green here. And I'm going to add some grey into that just to knock it back from being such a very strong, stark green. That's a nicer green. In fact, that's a lovely green. That's a really nice green. We'll add a bit more grey in there. You will notice I'm not worrying about mixing up my colours. It doesn't matter. It's all just fine. Be relaxed about it. Okay, so I like that. I like that colour a lot. So I'm going to put that in water. I'm going to get my rose. I'm using the finest brush that I've got, which is a really nice fine watercolour brush here. It's a bit fluffy on the end. That's down to me not clearing it very well. So let's defluff it in the water. I usually add water to my brush before I start painting to check it's flowing. And I would check just on the edge of a bit of fabric down at the bottom. Can you see the bottom? You can now. Just check that I've got a good flow going there. I'm going to just back this camera off a bit because we're so close. Oh no, that's closer. Hochanda, do you want to give me a job as a camera woman? I'm really good. Now I've gone really far out again. Isn't this fun? Should we go with that? Should we go with that? We'll go with that. Yes, we'll go with that. Dixter says we'll go with that. Right, so that was a nice consistency, nice wet brush, got some green. And do not sweat over this. This is not meant to be a realistic painting, okay? If I wanted realism, I'd just do a photo onto fabric. This is meant to be an artist's impression, i.e. mine. So it will have my own hand in it. So I'm just going to paint away. I've got a nice mid-green here. And I'm just putting in stems. Do you know what would help a lot here? Which I always forget to do, is to actually put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing, because this is quite fine. Plus, I've run out of the proper contact lens. I only wear one contact lens, which may seem odd, unless you only wear one contact lens too. It works very nicely most of the time, but it does mean for close-up work I need my glasses. But the contact lens I've got in at the moment is my spare, and it's not quite strong enough. So actually, I can't actually... Shall I stop? Doesn't make any sense, that. Shall we talk about the stem of the rose? So I'm just putting in the stem of the rose here, and we'll put in the other one. They're a bit hairy around the edge. Not bothered about that. Sometimes, particularly when you're starting, you may get quite a bleed. I have watered down these paints for you quite a lot, not quite a lot, a little bit, to make them easier to spread, and then I've watered it further on the palette. So sometimes you may get a bleed into the fabric of the paint. Honestly, don't worry about it. We can sort it all out later, and it doesn't matter. I've got a bleed there. I can see it. I've got a bleed. Can you see that first stem? I've got a fabulous bleed going around that stem. It does not matter. I'm going to stitch into this later anyway. And if I wanted to, I could make the stems fatter. I'm just not going to worry about anything like that. As I've said before, and will always keep saying, some things in life worry me and worry me a lot. This is not one of them. This is meant to be fun, and the second it's not fun, I'm not doing it anymore. So we've got a bit of a, and this is not a swear word, we've got a bit of a bleeding stem there, but never mind. I'll stick in the other one. All that says is I just added too much water into the paint. So, and then let's put in under the roses, there's little sepals here of green, so we'll add those in too. When you're doing this, you can't see as clearly on the camera, but I've got the whole outline drawn here, so all I'm doing is painting into what's there, and I am making this up as I go along. I am not worrying about what is realistic. I am just putting on what I think looks nice. So now I'm going to go in with the same green into all the leaves, and I'm going to do them all in a nice plain mid green for now. Okay, you could put mid green in the middle, lighter above and darker below. I find it probably easier to just put mid green on the lot and then go in and add shading. So, and you'll notice I'm moving this, moving my not canvas, my piece of fabric as I need to make it easy for me to get to. I've also put, can you see there, I've missed with the stem, gone over the edge, not bothered about that either. In fact, we could make that into a nice little, really handy thing about roses is they have, what are those little pricks called? No answers to that are rude, please. Thorns. They've got little thorns on their stems, so we can put some little, whoa, that's a big thorn there. Okay, that rose has got a big thorn on its stem. Let's put some down here where it's gone a bit woolly as well. That's a handy thing to put on, is a few little thorns. There we go. Right. That one is a spectacularly big one. Never mind. You know, the only person that will ever notice the mistakes is you. Nobody else will. They'll just look at your lovely piece of work and think, that's beautiful, aren't you clever? And really, you're not so much clever, I think, as brave. You're just prepared to sit down and do it. That's the big difference in this between those that do and those that don't, is not so much talent. Your talent and skill will build up as you do more. But it's more about just doing it and enjoying it and letting yourself enjoy it, because this is lovely. This is not that different to adult colouring. I've got an outline, all right, I've drawn it there, but I've still got an outline to work to, and I'm just painting in the bits in between. That is not difficult, okay? So if you're with me at this point, it doesn't get any more intimidating than this. It really doesn't. I'm just sitting, enjoying, adding colour, enjoying the slurpiness of my paint, which I like. I've got loads of paint out here, so I do tend to, with this project, do the roses first, because they take very little paint and you will always pour out too much. Then go on and do some colour washed fabrics and do some stamping, because you'll probably be able to do most of it with the paint that you've poured out to do your roses, to be quite honest with you. Right, so we've got another leaf here, which is quite handy because it covers up a bit of the woolly stem there. And if you wanted to, there's plenty of fabric in the kits. You could easily take a piece and have a bit of a practice first, or even just a piece of paper. Just get used to the brush. If you're not used to doing this, get used to the brush. But you've got a lovely fine brush. It's got a nice fine tip. It's good quality. It's not a hairy little double that's going to make a mess for you. And just get used to using them. This is a real pleasure. And these are skills you can transfer into lots of other things as well. And I always like to learn skills whilst making something. I got very sick of making sample after sample after sample. I would much rather make something that is not perfect whilst I'm learning a skill than make yet another sample to go in my drawer. So, and I have learnt in life to not worry about perfection. Certainly not in this. I can be, believe me, I can be a perfectionist and I can nitpick for Britain. But I've trained myself to try and be different, and in this I've been very successful because I just don't mind too much. Okay, so we've got mid-green on all the stems there, and you can see how pretty that looks. Now you could leave it at that. You don't have to go any more complicated than that. You don't have to do anything else. You could just leave the leaves as mid-green. Now I enjoy putting on a bit of shading. So if you would too, I'm going to start off by, let's put some lighter shading. So you can see on my palette here, I've made a right old bugger's muddle here. So I'm going to just use a bit of my spread here, and I'm going to add white into that to make myself a nice paler green. That will do nicely, actually. That's a nice paler green there. So back to the rose. And I'm going to use the paler colour, I think, on the tips. So all I'm doing is just going in and adding, see if I can hold that up to the camera so that you can actually see what I've just done. Just a bit of paint on the tip there. Nothing complicated, just a little splat of paint, that's all. So if we'll do that again, we'll just put a little bit of light colour on the tip there. And I'm going to do that on the, so I'm just going back over what's there. I've missed the leaf there, so I might have to alter its shape a bit. I'm just putting this on the tips. I'm not putting veins on. I am not putting anything realistic on. I am just splobbing a bit of colour. I do like the word splobbing. I'm sure I used it on the Hochanda show. It's a good word to describe a non-stressful application of something, is splobbing. That's how I define it. So we've put some on those, and let's put it on that lad. And this boyo here. There's the Welsh in me coming out, the boyo. And this boyo here. Right. And that one, I've got about 3 minutes left, so we're not going to get the rose in on this one, you see. And this, told you I could bang on for Britain. This is going to be a two-part video on doing the rose, but that's okay. I want you to know it's not hard. That's all I'm bothered about, is convincing you can do this, because it upsets me when you think I'm doing something so clever you couldn't do it, because I know I very rarely am doing anything clever at all. Okay, so I've put some light shades on there. Let's hold it up again to the camera so that you can see those. So all I've done is add light bits in the ends of the leaves, and now I'm just going to mix up a tiny bit. So we'll use a bit more of this splashed up green here, and I'm going to add a micro spasm of black there, another micro splat, going very carefully with black. Yeah, you see I wasn't very careful there. Black darkens things very quickly indeed, really quickly. I've almost made that grey now. Let's put more green. I've done what I've told you not to, which is put too much of something. There we go. That'll do fine. That'll do fine. Do you know, I might add a tiny bit of blue into that just to stop it being so that's nice. Okay. Right. And again, colour mixing. The more you mix colours, the more you'll know about colour mixing. I don't read books about it. I just do lots of painting. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to put in a small amount of this darker one at the base of the leaves. So just as they're coming out. This is not realistic shading. There is no leaf in the world that I know of that shades like this, but it looks nice, doesn't it? It looks nice, it looks pretty, it gives a nice effect. That is absolutely all we are bothering about here, girls or boys. It'd be nice if I had some boys with me. We're not bothering about realism here. Vastly overrated. Much more interesting to see your own hand, your own idea of things, what you like, what you don't like. So I've just put in on all of the leaves a little bit of darkness in the base. It's barely noticeable, but it's there. And I'm going to do the same on the sepals under the rose here, just to emphasize those a bit more, give them a bit of darkness. And I may just put a little bit of the dark up the sides of the stem like that as well. And this one here is very light. Let's go into this one that went a tad woolly on us. Okay, and that will do. So video's going to stop in a minute anyway. Let me hold this up so that you can see our green leaves. They are not complicated. Okay, I hope you can see they are not complicated. Let me hold that still, see if it will focus. They're just mid-green, dark at the bottom, light at the top. But you can see how effective that looks. So I'm going to go and upload this bit now, and then we will come back and we will add the rose flowers. Bye for now. Bye.